I would say there's some degree of, like, there's definitely panic attack, and I think she, what is the word I'm looking for? Yeah, disassociates to some extent.
Yeah, okay. So she gets panicky and she doesn't move towards the relationship, she's actually a withdrawer then.
Yeah. But she does feel like, from their report, it's significantly less intense if he is present than if he's not. So
what does she look like in the session? Does she look like a withdrawer in the session?
Sorry.
Does she look like a withdrawer in the session?
Yeah. They don't have a strong. They're newly married,
Yeah.
so they don't have a strong. I haven't seen them like fight a lot and stuff like that.
Right. Sometimes when there's like a hyper-aroused sensitivity to trauma cues, it's really hard to regulate a session, even to get them out of stage one.
Right.
Because they're too fine-tuned to the distress, and so then maybe some individual therapy. They have to reach. I think you have to be at a certain level of affect regulation in order for couples therapy to work.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, and I think it's a pretty wide range. You could be dysregulated and be in couples therapy, but I think there's some people who are really on the extreme of trauma that it's really hard to regulate them because they're just so triggered. You can't get the cycle going.
Right. And it is
so triggered.
That makes sense, because there have been some times where even the lighting is wrong in the room and it'll trigger her and things like that. So it's pretty severe.
Yeah, sometimes they're so dysregulated that you end up dealing more with the crisis each session of the week than you actually are moving in therapy.
Right.
So you can't get the steps and stages if you continue to deal with crisis.
Okay, so that's almost something else.
Yeah, usually that's a good sign if like you find yourself every session going, oh my gosh, there's another big crisis here that we're dealing with. Then they're not able to regulate their experiences well enough to be able to keep moving through the steps and stages. But you have a lot that are dysregulated, and it's actually in the relationship that they're more likely to get regulated.
Right.
But I think there's a point in which all relationships feel dysregulating, even healthy relationships, and it takes a skilled therapist to work with that person to get around the complex defenses that a partner's not going to be able to get around. Yeah. Would you agree? Would you add to that?
What I would probably do is do therapy with her, with him in the room. I would work on her trauma and let him be present watching, so he's aware of what she's experienced, but not have it be marriage counseling. What do you say to that, boss?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the level. It depends on whether that will inhibit her from moving beyond her defenses. So if having him there would be, I would have to assess whether having him there over a couple. I think it's better the first try.
Yeah.
But if he was inhibiting the progress, if like she was a primary trigger for him just by her presence, which I've seen that.
He said that he regulates her, right?
Yeah, he
and they're newlyweds, so
Yeah.
you want him as an attachment figure to be a secure base.
Yeah, if he regulates her,
Yeah.
he's not a cue to her distress.
Right. That's why I said that. I mean, you want to build on that, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you can get a 600-watt bulb in the room, you should do it.
And I almost feel like as we've gotten in, that's almost more what they came in for. Like they said, they came in wanting marriage counseling, but I feel like as we've gotten farther in, it has become them coming in with her things and him there to support her.
Well, and they're still in a cycle,
Right.
So her own PTSD response is generating a cycle within the relationship that still needs to be addressed.
Right.
And he probably has all sorts of unmet attachment needs.
That he's not even aware. He's probably triggering her without even knowing what he's doing.
Yeah.
90% of the time. So by his being present in you're participating and you're doing therapy with her, knowing, so he's watching what's going on and getting to experience what her trauma is. That's going to give him a huge amount of awareness of what she's going on, and also giving him some relief that he's not triggering her. That he's
That's
just.
true.
You see what I'm saying?
He's on the source of triggering. I would also be using him as a grounding in session. So his primary responsibility is to ground her, not me. Is to continue to have her turn to him for grounding moments. Hold her hand, put her arm around her. Yeah.
I'm doing that with two women that have been traumatized as children, and their husbands aren't in the room, but they have both come to me. Both of them have said, my marriage is in trouble because I have gone through so much trauma, and I know I'm taking it out on my husband. And so everything I do intervention-wise, we're doing a lot of trauma work, and then I'm saying, go home and talk to your husband and do this, 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 and this, because I wish their husbands could come, but that's exactly what I would do if I had the husband in the room, because they're very aware that they're hurt, that they know that they're hurting that they're taking a lot out on their husband, and they're both scared that that's what's happening.
I'd say too, it's very unusual for a trauma survivor to marry a securely attached individual. Just by the nature of their own trauma and their own reactivity, they're probably going to marry someone who's more avoidant. Likely to be more avoidant. And that's what I've seen, and also with their own set of issues that come with avoidance. Drugs, alcohol, addictions, that type of thing. And which also then re-traumatizes them, which is the sad part about it. But yeah, it's unlikely. But I mean, this guy could be.
They have an interesting situation where they're both the survivors of extreme trauma, which hers is more recent than his. But I mean, he died several times as a child, and it's like 5 times, I think.
Well, his ability to regulate her will only go as deep as his capacity to see himself. So this is just like my example with Christ, right? What he hasn't been able to tolerate, he will not be able to tolerate.
Right.
So you gotta and that's when it gets really tricky. You're like working them both down at the same time.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail us.
It's a good question. But there's probably some other people in this room who work with couples that you will definitely get trauma showing up like that. Yeah, good. Any other questions about couples that you have that can fit within this? I think it brings this material to life. If you have questions about couples you're currently working with. Anything else? Okay, let's talk stage 6, and then we'll do like a little demonstration. Well, let's get through stage 2, and then we'll do a little demonstration before we go to stage 3. Okay, so step 6 is we're going to promote each partner's acceptance of the other partner's experience. So basically, that's the heart of it. That's why it's underlined. It's like, okay, now I'm in touch with my own attachment history, my own attachment experiences. Now I'm going to shift it to accepting the attachment history, position, and experiences of my partner. And this is where you take the softening and you go further with the softening through identification of the other partner's needs and unattachment needs and prior emotions and perceptions, right? And the withdrawal also does that. They re-engage with the other partner's prior emotions. So not just re-engaging with their own experiences, now they're re-engaging with their partners. Does that make sense? So not only softening to themselves, now they're softening to the partner. And that's the big transition. So it usually starts with an evocative question. So what is it like? This is heavy in this stage, or in this step. What is it like for you? What happens for you when your partner talks like this and says this? Right? You're basically, the evocative question is, what is happening inside of me in response to them? Or another evocative question would be in step 5 would be, what's happening inside of you? Right? As you talk about this. Step 6 would be, what's happening inside of you as your partner talks about this? Mm-hmm. That would be one of the differences of how an evocative question would work in step 5 versus step 6. Okay? And then choreograph less constricting and more accepting responses and interaction. So the positions and the patterns have been rigid, and so we want to make them more flexible and less constricted. And so we're going to be challenging their responses and softening them some. So even the therapist might be intervening a little bit more to keep them softened, directing them a little bit more as they engage with one another. So as they move into old patterns of like defend and attack, you'll be using prior emotions to shift them down into softer positions and then have them reapproach each other. Sometimes you're catching bullets at this stage, right? Not wanting them to hurt each other, because now they're turning towards each other trying to turn towards each other in a softer position for their own unmet attachment needs, but they haven't done this very well. So they don't really know how to do this well, and so you're having to kind of construct interactions a little bit. That's why the evocative responses are narrow. Like if I give an evocative response and I say evocative question, step 6, like, so what comes up for you when you listen to your wife responding? Right? I open it up to anything, right? It just doesn't necessarily make it a safe enactment. If I say, what comes up for you when you hear your wife talk about the loneliness that she's experienced in this relationship, her need for comfort has gone unmet, right? I'm narrowing it down, and then I'm setting it up for more acceptance, more communicated acceptance in stage 2 and step 6. Okay? So you're moving the perspective of the partner from villain back to friend. And this really is the step 6 thing, right? Where they start to have eyes of compassion on the partner accepting them, no longer in the cycle of blaming them. Like, you know, where it begins, couples therapy begins, is in each individual wanting to change the other person, right? And so now there's awareness that I'm part of this dance. I contribute to your reactions. You contribute to my reactions, and there's something deeper going on here. And so it's like step 5 is the aha of myself. Step 6 is the aha of my partner. Right? Oh, okay, now I get it. Okay, now I have more compassion. Now I get it. You're reaching out and wanting the same needs I need. In step 6. So, okay.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that she articulates really well in the book is just that as a therapist we should kind of expect that partner. So you got in step 5 you have the partner that's having the aha moment of like, oh my gosh, this is how I've always been doing this. And so step 6 is really the expectation is that partner 2 is not going to be super like accepting. And that was really weird for me as a therapist. At first, the thought is like, he's giving you he's saying all the stuff you wanted your whole marriage. Like, how great is that? Like, why can't you just be grateful, right? Like, everything you've ever wanted to hear, he's finally saying. And she's like, this is a bunch of crap. Like, he's acting, he's just saying this for you. He's not being sincere. I mean, all of it. And I was shocked. I was like, what is this, And so her whole thing is be ready for a lot of mistrust, a lot of ambivalence, a lot of like downright resentment. That's okay, because there's a lot of years of history of this dance going on in such a way that he's never or she's never said these things. That this is difficult.
But you just do that, and you just got him to be vulnerable. He's not trusting. So
yeah.
You can validate. This pattern's gone on for such a long time now that it's changed. It doesn't feel real to you.
Right.
But you're leaving this man who was wide open and just got jabbed. Like,
right.
How's he not going to want to just go?
Well, so that's what she says is that what you're doing is in step 5 you're validating, you're really giving a lot of space for like this new interaction pattern, like the bravery of partner 1, and that's a big deal, right? But you're keeping your eye on partner 2, and you're like ready. So like what Dr. Fry just says, you're ready to catch the bullets because or you're fairly certain that partner 2 is going to be like, I don't know about this.
Okay,
right?
So how was my catch the bullet with partner 2?
So that's when
I don't know what to say to partner 1. Just give me some words. Like,
Okay, so you're saying that partner 1 is, let's say
vulnerable.
Partner 1 is the vulnerable one, partner 2 is
Yeah.
not accepting the vulnerability.
Yeah. And so you've got to heal that moment really quickly.
You do, because you don't want to create a new injury, right? Because all of a sudden they've opened up, and then you've got this, and that's going to happen. Like that
What are
happens
you
every
going
time.
to say to
Almost,
him?
right?
I'm sorry, she just stabbed you in the eye with your
I think you first of all remember that they're looking to their partner to respond competently, but you are also there to respond competently. So they're not just dependent on the partner to respond competently. If they're not getting competent response from their partner, then you become the competent response. And you say to them, I know this is taking a lot of risk. I know this is unusual behavior for you. I know this comes from a deeper place, a place that you haven't been able to feel like there was enough safety to express. But then I also know, and I turn to the partner, but I also know this is very unfamiliar for you. And you sit there and you question it, and that's part of the reason you've always stayed in your position. You tie it back to the cycle. So it says, so you've always sort of stayed in this like confused kind of, you're so familiar with criticizing him that's difficult for you to be able to see him as something other than to be critical of. Right? And so you just like, it's like a soft confrontation and then a validation. So this is very weird, right? It can feel very artificial, it's very new, it's unfamiliar behavior, and so you're sitting back and questioning it. That makes a lot of sense. I would too.
Go back and forth,
Yeah.
like over and over and over again. You validate the one who's being soft, you validate why this may not feel trustworthy. It occurred to me, this couple we've been working with forever, we've been doing that for a year now. Yeah, over a year.
Yeah.
He keeps being competent, giving the responses, he's been clean, and she keeps going, I don't believe you, I don't believe you, I don't believe you. And we keep validating why she doesn't feel like she can trust him, and he keeps showing up over and over again. We keep validating that, and she keeps not believing him, and week after week after week.
He makes his best attempt at showing up, which is never enough for her.
Right.
which honestly